welcome. I am here with Amanda Lewan. She is the CEO and co-founder of Bamboo with three locations now across Michigan, and we'll talk about that in a minute. So, Amanda, I didn't look up. You were like on the podcast 1 million years ago, and you've been open since 2013, so you're over 10 years old already. This is wild. And thanks for coming on the podcast. I see you pop into you're like on LinkedIn and in the Facebook groups there are times, and you posted. I mean, we have connected recently, and you posted on LinkedIn kind of some three lessons you've learned from being open in three different markets. And I was like, oh, we got to get Amanda on the podcast to talk about this. But I love that. And you have a 6-month-old son.
Me too.
And wait, that's your second, right?
Baby number 2 and three bamboos. So yeah, the world keeps us a little busy, but it's a lot of fun. And thank you for everything you do, Jamie. We get so much value. My team feels so connected to the community through you and the work that you do in this podcast. And, we're all community people, so we need to lean in on each other, learn, and share our experiences.
Totally. Well, I love that you make time to do it because you have a lot going on. We were just talking about all of Amanda's hats besides being a mom of 50 small children. You're like head of growth, CEO, head of, all the hats that one wears and figure out kind of how to balance those. Okay, so let's start at the beginning because everybody loves to hear this story. You started in 2013, which is like pretty early days. I opened in Chicago in 2012, and I remember being like, there's like not that much on the internet about co-working. It was so new. Yeah.
I honestly couldn't even know.
Right. So how did you know, like, okay, this is what I want to do. This is what it's called. Tell us about the genesis of the first Bamboo location.
Yeah. So my background was in marketing. I got laid off from an advertising firm after being there for a couple of years and started working downtown, and I didn't know what I was going to do. I was freelancing, and then I worked at a community center it was a nonprofit model that was like a welcome center. So you could come in and learn about the city. And when they interviewed me to work there, they were like, what do you want to do in the next 3 to 5 years? And I hate that question.
You're late 20s. Paid? Yeah.
And for some reason, like, I love the idea of like a community center. Like, I would love to be someone that creates that. Fast forward, we just had a couple friends who came up with this idea. And my business partner, who I'm still partners with today, we convinced his dad to let us it was literally like 3,500 square feet. Test out the model. We borrowed $5,000 from him, got IKEA furniture and paint, very grassroots. We had no sign. We were in downtown Detroit, which was going through a lot of change.
Yeah.
We just threw a bunch of events, that marketing background. I was always the personality that brought people together. So
the connector.
I learned a lot, and I worked in restaurants and hospitality all through high school and college. So it was kind of like this natural fusion of my skills. But we really bootstrapped it. We tested out the model for a few years. And we convinced his dad, like, let us test this out since your space has been empty for 10 years. And if we can generate revenue, we'll start paying on a lease. Most people probably
sort of like a pop-up. You're like, okay, the building's here. No one's taking it. Can we just pop in, try this out, see how it goes, and go from there?
And then very quickly, we learned like 1 out of every 2 people that called us wanted a private office. And we were like, whoa, the space is too small for that. So we sort of evolved our model over time. We signed a lease. We did a long-term lease in downtown Detroit. And then right in the middle of the pandemic, we decided, since my partner had a background in real estate development, and mostly because we wanted to fully control the experience, we thought maybe we should look at owning and developing property. And the location we found in the suburbs right before the pandemic, the numbers just made more sense. And so we ended up going down that process, closed on the building just a few months before the global pandemic hit. And it ended up being one of the best things we did because a lot of our listeners know co-working shifted more from downtown urban core to suburban locations. And we really lucked out. It's right on Main Street across from a Starbucks, really busy. And what we learned is that's the model we want to replicate going forward. We look for a pathway to ownership so we can bring in an investor or an investor group that helps with the high build-out costs that you all have to negotiate with landlords on. And then I get to control the experience and make sure that everybody's happy and like greeted right away by our team and connected to community. And we love like being on a street corner or having a very visible location that's like one of the biggest things I learned from opening that second location is it's just people walk in all day, every
Yeah.
day
Night and
and sign
day.
up or
Yeah.
comfort or drive past it. Oh, hey, I saw Bamboo. I've been thinking about signing up for 6 months. And it's just like, we, you probably end up paying a little bit more, but it can be worth it if you find that right location.
It's a marketing tool, but it is right. It's a hospitality business, but location, location, location.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so then fast forward, it took quite a while for us to recover from the pandemic and navigate that opening. I mean, we were in the middle of construction, got renovating a historic building with masks on and being told that people wouldn't come back. And then I think probably like everyone who survived the pandemic, we kept thinking, okay, we'll just plan for 1 year. Worst case scenario, it would be like 2 or 3 years. But every market's different. I think recovery was a little slower in Michigan. We just opened our third location, 45 minutes away in Ann Arbor, which is a university town. We had a lot of partners here and we had some customers here. And so that felt like a good opportunity. And our mission is to really change the culture in our region to be more innovative and inclusive. So we are looking for places where are the startups? Where are the creatives? Where do young people want to be? Where can we create change? And a university town that has had a ton of startup success they were home to the first like unicorn in Michigan. And that energy, that talent was really helpful. So we're really looking to like just expand in our state, do a couple more, create a more sustainable model, but happy to talk through our model a little bit more, how it's evolved. Definitely started with 3,000 square feet and $5,000. So it is possible to do a pop-up. It takes a long time
Yeah.
to then get to a sustainable model. But like you all listening and Jamie, it's like, I think we're all in this because we want to create something sustainable, but also we just value community or we find this fun, hopefully.
We'd better, right? Because it's not easy enough for it to not be really fun and rewarding. So the location in Royal Oak, how many square feet is that? Because it's a great
Yeah.
location. Sometimes it can be very hard to find the right amount of square feet and have
Yeah,
folks.
20,000 square feet. And that's something else we learned. So
20,000?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Great.
We keep adding square feet in our downtown location every like year. We would
Okay.
bootstrap, build out a little more space because we learned that people kept growing, especially since we often have startups and small businesses at Bamboo. That's the culture we build.
Yeah.
So they would start as a team of one, grow to 10, but they don't want to leave yet. Like,
Yeah.
just need to leave. They don't want to spend
Right.
that
And they're like,
money.
you do everything for us. You give us
Yeah.
the furniture, you give us the coffee and the people and the great vibes. And we don't want to go build that all on our own. Too much.
Yeah. And then in Ann Arbor, we're 25,000 square feet. We are looking at our next one, maybe a little larger, but we want to have that room for people to move. That was like for us, that's what our customer needs.
Yeah.
Gives us flexibility. Although, ironically, now one of my lessons learned is like small spaces are just like in such high demand. So it's like,
So even in sort of a startup environment where people are growing, do you have some team suites in the Royal Oak space or?
yeah, usually our biggest offices are for about 10, but we
Mhm.
have everybody's using things differently. So we did sell our biggest offices in Ann Arbor before opening to a
Okay.
40-person company or 40 remote workers in that
Okay.
area.
Yep.
And they got two 10-person offices to rotate in
Yeah.
and just have a landing spot and bring people back. But I think every market's slightly different. A lot of individuals and small teams are back. The bigger teams, they're still creating change. They're still shedding their leases. They're still deciding what they're doing. And they can just use co-working differently. And that's our job as the operators, is to educate these people and help them learn and then support their return to office if they're just coming back. So it's like all this change has been happening in our industry. And I think we're still all navigating that and playing a role in it.
And figuring out how to predict a little bit because, right, when you do a build out, it is some maybe a little easier to change when you own the building because at least you're incented
Still
to make it
expensive. You don't
worse.
want to change it.
You don't. No. Totally. It's hard. So, okay, we'll talk about, so it sounds like you're in markets where you're supporting startups that may want to grow with you. Who are the people who come in for the one person offices?
Lots of remote workers. I think that's where, like, we're trying to figure out how much has co-working shifted from big
Yeah.
teams we used to be in every day to these hybrid, smaller groups, or like maybe you have a team with just a few remote workers and they need to meet up. It does sort of feel like a lot of that demand, like our number one product is I want a 1 to 2 person office. I'll pay 500, 800 bucks a month, all inclusive. And like we could sell that all day,
Yeah.
but we still have some space for those teams because eventually they do outgrow and move up.
Yeah.
So it's been kind of interesting. And I think it's also a lot of the larger teams come in for offsites. So having like a little bit larger event
Yeah.
space just been interesting to see. And so one thing we've been talking about, Jamie, and like I know why you wanted to potentially have this conversation is that now that we're at 3 locations, we're trying to see like co-working is so hyper local. Each community is slightly different. Our Detroit and Royal Oak locations are only 20 minutes away. So now that we have one that's an hour away, it's like we're seeing like slightly different trends. I still think that smaller office product is probably the number one product.
Just
So
the
our next
staple.
locations,
Yeah.
we're gonna like cut as many big offices, build smaller if you can.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. It's just interesting. So it's we're kind of in this space where we're like looking for those trends and deciding what is hyper local to that community and what is now like the norm post pandemic. Now that we're a few years kind of out of that change.
So how do you get to know a market like Ann Arbor when you don't live there?
Great question. Our investor and our architect designer who partner with us on Royal Oak are from there.
I,
And even though it's 45 minutes away, there's a lot of cultural interest in the two cities. Detroit, put the world on wheels, helped build the middle class, has this like maker and entrepreneurial spirit. Ann Arbor, University of Michigan is like one of the top universities for talent. And it just seemed like it is a smaller market, but it was very underbuilt from what we could see. And a lot of the co-working spaces didn't have private office product.
yeah.
Our model evolved to private office product being the number one stabilizer of the model. I think you've also like broken this down in your classes and just how important it is because they pay more, they stay longer.
Yeah.
Our people we think now post pandemic are staying up to 3 years. It really just depends on their company and what they need.
Wow.
But if
Yeah.
you've got a customer that'll pay $3,500 a month for 3 years, it
Yep.
balances out the $60 a month virtual office customer and makes it more accessible for small businesses and startups. So when you're looking around, we're like, wow, we know the market, we have some relationships. We think it's underbuilt. The only spaces we saw doing co-working didn't have private offices. And we still like to be in downtown walkable areas or suburban. Like our cities in Michigan are a lot overlooked by the WeWorks and Industrious. So we're looking at how can we be that regional leader and build those bridges. So it's kind of a mix of like our customers are there, our partners are there. We've been building relationships for years there. As we look at other markets in Michigan, it's like what other cities are big enough that could maybe sustain that and are missing that product because that product stabilizes the business model. And everybody's model is different, but I kind of do feel like a lot of people who start co-working spaces, they start small, maybe too small. They don't know to build more private offices or it's scary. You're leasing 7 offices for your first time.
Yeah.
I remember the first Bamboo, I was like, we had 7 offices and I was like, who's going to buy these? And then we magically leased them all up right before opening. And now it's like the number one thing we try to sell. So it's just interesting. And also like educating people in a new market since they don't have private offices that we've been having to teach people on. If you're a bigger team, it is more affordable than getting a lease and still
helping them understand that math. Right. It's a little bit of a
more flexible.
Yeah.
So probably a better fit for you, especially if you don't know what you're doing yet or you're just coming back together or you're supporting hybrid and remote work. And so it's like this really interesting time I think we have in an industry to like figure out new models, but it still is really hyper local to each city and each community, I think.
Yeah. Which I also think is an advantage for operators like you versus an industrious. Like they don't really have I don't think the infrastructure to like really get to understand a market. I mean, they'll do some work and think like, okay, that looks like a good market, but to really localize it and really dive into the community. I also think for people listening, Ann Arbor, I happened to do a feasibility study on the market and I reached out to you about it. It was another building owner who was thinking about turning the building into flex. And I knew nothing about Ann Arbor and came to the same conclusion as you. I was like, this is so interesting. It's a great market and it's got, the, innovation, college, campus, good household income, like the types of things like we look for remote workers. And exactly the supply just didn't match what we see sell in terms of modern day co-working. And I think part of that is right when people build a product, like it's just really hard. You've got a lease, it's too expensive to change it. And so, but for people listening, like there's opportunity for that still, like great markets like Ann Arbor that are underserved. Oh,
it
yeah,
took
go
us
ahead.
3 years to get the building.
That's right. I think
and
you told me
also,
that.
landlords, when you're in a market like that where you have one dominant player, like a university,
Ah,
they just sit on their property and wait to sell to the university. So we had to, I think, honestly, the pandemic had to empty out some buildings to
Yeah. For
convert
them to
them
be
to
like, okay, fine.
Yeah, I think that's a challenge of a smaller market. And I'm sure everyone listening, if you're exploring real estate, you know this. Like, there's only
Yeah.
going to be a couple landlords. And then
Yeah.
if they're getting like $1 billion institution, it's hard to compete with that if someone thinks they can sell their building there. So anyway, just some
Yeah.
thoughts. And the
No, I love
reality is
it.
it can take like years to find a location too, as
But
well.
you bought the building in Ann Arbor.
This one, we have a lease to own structure option so
Okay.
that we can just get in, fill the
Yeah.
space, and then do that. And
Yeah.
Royal Oak, we purchase, and the next
Okay.
couple ones we're looking at purchase. Or we have a potential management option we're looking at. And Jamie and I were talking about that and figuring out if that's a viable option. But ideally, our thought on the purchase is that it helps us bring in investors and create a model that's a little more sustainable potentially. But I think the downside is you have to be really committed to that local community because you're doing like long-term loans, guaranteeing that, or someone's guaranteeing that. So you do have to be really, really confident, I think, in that location.
Yeah.
But I think I actually learned from the podcast that operating is pretty popular in Europe. I think you had mentioned that, or someone on your podcast did in the past. So I think that is a model that exists elsewhere, and I think we might see it more potentially. Now, if you are in a market where you still have empty real estate, you still have landlords that are slow to move. Depends.
I think it's going to be
we're recovering, but we saw an opportunity to like, can we get in a little cheaper?
Yep.
And acquire a property in a couple new cities and make it a more valuable offer to an investor.
Yeah. And so are your investors investing in only the asset or also the operating company?
Right now, only the asset. But they like trust us. They like the idea that we're managing it and like building that. And they share our values and want to make an impact to community or see their downtown area redeveloped. They're like a stakeholder, I think, too. They're not just investing just for real estate. Like that's ideal for us, is that you share some values and care about the impact. Because coworking does generate impact. If you guys have members every day, growing companies, spending money at the coffee shop down the street, partnering with each other. It's hard to capture that impact and tell a story around it. But I do think people, your local cities and your states and like your stakeholders should care about that impact that you create.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, think about even just the money spent, right? If everybody's working at home, which is not a good choice for a lot of people, they're not, lunch, coffee, right, all the things, and hiring, growing, to your point. Yeah, I love that. Are your
And there's
investors?
so many connections. Like we have members who found co-founders and started companies, and they're now like at Series A, Series B stage because they were like present. But you all know not everybody participates in the community too. So I think Jeannie, you and I were talking about like a couple lessons learned. Definitely like lesson number one is just how hyper local it is. Like even if you're an hour away, it's a different city, could be a different community, could have different trends. And your job is to learn those trends and try to build the product to fit that trend.
Totally. I was going to say, before you make all the assumptions about
before you make the assumptions.
Yes. Yeah. I think that's 100% true. Even the growth and this was a long time ago for me too, but when I had a space in Chicago and then opened in Palo Alto, and it just didn't, I knew that, I learned a bunch of lessons and thought, okay, I figured this out, and Palo Alto's full of startups who wanted growth.
Yeah.
And I didn't have it. I didn't have the bigger suites because I knew like, okay, this is the product that sells. And they were so disappointed because they just wanted to stay and grow. And I was like, okay, yeah, I can't do that. And I just didn't see it coming. I didn't understand like that difference in the market. So
it's hard. I think it's hard to know.
Yep. Unless you haven't, right. But you're trying to create the right relationships to really understand those markets and do the right due diligence.
As much as possible, I sort of still feel like we could always do more, but I talk to everybody. I'll be like, and it's hard because you need the building under contract if you're purchasing it or developing it, and you only have a certain time to like get
Let
on
them
it
move and decide.
Like,
right.
You don't want to. We're sensitive in Detroit. People announce projects all the time that never happen. So like, we try to build those relationships, gut check everything. Would this be a good location? Why? Why not? Would you park here? What's parking like? Funny story, I had a member in Detroit who used to take a bus from Ann Arbor to Detroit every day, and he'd walk past our Ann Arbor building going to his bus. And he like asked me, he said, there's this building in my neighborhood. It would just be so good for co-working. But I was negotiating with the landlord. It wasn't under contract yet. My team was like, Amanda, you cannot tell anybody. And I'm not good at keeping secrets. So I had to not tell that member. And then
that was the one? With the
Yeah,
building.
he was walking by our building every day. He's like, "Oh, I would just love to go co-work there." And I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I'll have to look at it." But then when we did finally close on our negotiations, he joined a launch committee. I put together like 12 people who know the community just to gut check, like, is this relevant? What should we be doing? Can you be on it
Brilliant.
for 2 years? Right.
Yes,
We don't want
2
to ask
years.
too much. Meet with
Wow.
us
Okay.
just once or twice. It's kind of social and fun too, because some of them know each other, some of them don't. And then they can gut check, like, are we being relevant? Are we adding value? Hey, you get free membership for 2 years or like a free event rental or two. And then you get to use it. And generally, they just also care about the mission and like want to see something like this in their community. So that's what we did in Ann Arbor that I'm hoping we can do in other cities. I think it's always hard to join a committee and get like value from that. So you have to balance the
Yeah.
ask people. But that was also what we tried to do to like gut check a lot of our assumptions.
Okay, that's brilliant. I love it. Well, tie that into so one of your lessons learned is about
Yes.
community. And so the launch committee probably plays into that. I mean, I love that. I would want to be on the launch committee because you're probably meeting others like really,
Yeah,
tried and
like
connected people
community
who maybe you
builders
don't.
or
Yeah.
people. So on our committee in Ann Arbor, oh, well, yeah. So the lesson or it's kind of like a mantra I've been saying lately. Community people always find each other. If you value
Yeah.
community, you usually
Yeah.
find other people, and those are your people. Those are usually your early adopters or your super fans or super users. They're going to launch. Like we have some people who regularly host events, like weekly or monthly, and they're just doing it to add value, and they're not trying to be transactional. They're trying to actually build relationships and help people. And that's the kind of energy you want in a community space. Everybody has different intentions. That's not going to be everybody. But I do think community people find each other. People who value community find each other. And so on that launch committee, we had people who are like founders who are community builders or someone who runs the local incubator in town whose job is to create business development in the community. She's been like a godsend helping us so much. So you kind of know probably who some of those leaders are.
Yeah.
You could think about it like influencers, but I think they're just
Yeah.
community builders too, whether they're have their own business or their other
Yeah.
role. And you're sort of inviting them to co-create with you and adding some value to them as well. Like we've made some intros or invited them to come speak at our other locations, which has been really fun.
Yeah. It's so smart because, right, I mean, again, yeah, they're not necessarily, maybe they're influencers, but they know people and they know the kinds of people who want to be a part of what you're building. I mean,
And
that
they
is
can gut check too,
right,
like, "Oh, no, that wouldn't probably work here," or,
right.
"Yeah," or like, "That's a broker you definitely wanna work with." Like, "That's the one
Yeah.
broker in town that's gonna be really helpful and be engaged." Like, those are the kind of things you're looking for. Yeah, so that and then also, this is gonna sound so cheesy, going deeper
Bring it
into
on.
they also do feel like everything you need is in your community once you're building it.
Mm,
So we've
mm.
been like tapping into that. I found a mentor that did something. I volunteered and helped him with an event like 7 years ago. He came to Bamboo's grand opening. He then gave me some advice at our next location, and then I hired him as a consultant, and he has successfully potentially gotten us a grant to help us make that location happen. And so, like, oftentimes the people coming to your events, the people in your community, like, our accounting is outsourced to a local accountant that started out of Bamboo. He's immigrant-owned founder, like, paired up with another person. Now they have a team of, like, 15 that actually outgrew us but we're still one of their clients. They do the accounting and bookkeeping for all of our locations. We had a lawyer and like, sometimes you can't do business with everyone or like,
Yeah.
but oftentimes if you ask, sometimes that's right there in your network. So we've been really leaning into our community and trying to balance that to like, now we have multiple locations. How do you keep that community culture authentic? So you don't become, I always compare indie co-working is like the local coffee shop versus the Starbucks.
Yeah.
You know what you're getting in a WeWork, you know what you're getting in a Starbucks, but it's that local coffee shop, that authenticity of the brand and the experience and the people. That's what makes it really special. So now one of our challenges too is how we have this great networking community. If we open 2 hours away, what does that look like? How does it stay connected? And how does those values like transfer over? So yeah, we were talking to Jamie and I have talked offline on like growing from 3. Our goal is to get to 5 eventually. And it's like a whole other kind of challenge there now too. Like what has worked that you can replicate, but still keep that authentic community. I don't know. We're gonna have to figure out more strategies like a launch committee to help, but
Yeah, I mean, a launch team, your launch committee is super smart too, because you don't have to deploy. I mean, you're hiring people in these markets, obviously, but you don't,
Yeah.
some brands will have a launch team who moves around as they open new locations in different markets. And you're moving humans, like,
I'm the moving human right
right.
now.
Well, I was just gonna say, I mean, speaking of which, so you're in Ann Arbor today, which is an hour
Yes.
from home to, you're still
Yeah.
in ramp up period. So you're checking in and okay, so slightly personal question, but you have two small kids, three locations. How do you do it?
I don't know. I do have a really supportive partner, my husband, who Jamie met. He's
I got
kind of
you
like an
later. Yeah.
advisor. He's started and sold a company before. So we're an entrepreneurial couple. That adds a whole nother layer though. Because sometimes I'm a morning person, he's a night person. I'll be like, my brain is dead at 10 p.m. I'm going to
Yeah.
bed. I have a baby. I might nurse at 5 or 6 in the morning. And he'll be like, oh, he found our potential fourth location, which has been a difficult one. So I always remind him, you found that one. But he'll be like, Amanda, I found a building. It's like midnight. I'm like, I'm asleep.
Yeah. He's up like, yeah.
No. Hey, there's a lot of understandings when you have a partner that you are in a like marriage with involved, but also he brings a lot of free skills to the table and passion and wants to support. I have a great business partner that started with us 10 years ago. His dad took that risk to let us test the model out, and he balances me out on the construction and real estate side, having mentors and friends. And honestly, I just focused on sleep the last 6 months. And I did take a small maternity leave. I came back at like 12, 13, 14 weeks. I have a great team, and I try to have my team really lead each location, which helps a lot. And it's just not perfect, but you have stages and seasons, and we're in the two kiddo season. And actually, in some ways, it feels harder and easier with two kids because she's 2.5 and he's 6 months. So she is obsessed with her brother and wants to help and hang out with him. She literally made him do a reading circle at like 8 in the morning. I was trying to get him out the door and she was holding his hand. And I'm like, he's 6 months old. He does not know what is going on. So
Yeah.
there's no perfect answer. I think you just need, you need to like find support in a village either way. If you're building a family or building a company, and sleeping was like my big focus, and sleep training. We're kind of a sleep training house. So trying to control things, but even though you can't fully control it.
Yep. You gotta let go a little bit. Yeah. Yeah. I love the focus on sleep. Nothing goes well when you're tired.
No, you can't. And like, you just got to take care of yourself sometimes. And I actually had an unexpected injury a week or
Oh,
two
yeah. I
ago.
saw that on LinkedIn. Yeah.
I had to be out for a week resting. And I was like, honestly, it was kind of good. It was the most sleep I got. Everything healed. And I got to detach from like the day to day. And it's hard as an operator, it's hard as a business owner. A lot of us, maybe you're like me and you get high energy from being in the space and being with the community, but sometimes you do need to take that self-care. And it actually had a lot of benefits while I was healing, which was really nice.
Good. Okay, well, can we talk about your team really quickly? So, three locations. You said you outsource accounting and marketing.
Yep.
Yeah. So, what does your location team look like? Who's running
Yeah.
this while Amanda's recovering?
Other Amanda's actually. No, if joking,
That's right.
authentically. But
Yes.
we call them community directors. They are essentially community managers, but they came up with that title because they felt like it was a little bit more authentic to what they were doing. So community directors and community coordinators. So one full-time leader, they're really over the office sales. And relationship building, managing the team, ensuring high level day to day is running smooth. Community coordinators or associates is what you might hear them called. They're managing most of the facility day to day, stocking, keeping things smooth, checking in on things, helping tag team. And oftentimes they're sharing some of that front desk situation, but they're planning and helping execute events. They're doing some light sales. They might sign up co-working or day passes, but the majority of the main accounts are under that director level or that manager level. So each location in Detroit, we have two. In Royal Oak, we have 2.5. So we added a part-time person that can flex and help with events, rentals on nights and weekends. We also have an outsourced event team that we can call in for bigger events if we need to, which is great. So each location, if they're 20 to 30,000 square feet, we probably need 2.5 humans. I've heard other models. I know we're a little more heavily staffed, but I just think I worry about one person because you get sick and like
Oh, you can't do one person for
you
20,000
need
feet.
no.
Yeah.
And like there's a culture thing there of having the two
Mhm.
and a half and
I think you
generally,
burn people out. I mean, it's just too,
yeah.
I mean, to your point, the sales versus facilities, I mean, that's such a natural, with some overlap in terms of
Yeah, like,
their
obviously, if
responsibilities.
someone's
Like,
on vacation, the director's making coffee and checking the printer,
right.
and totally fine with that, but they
Yeah.
know that they're mostly on the higher level sales and relationship building. So that's kind of our model now, and we do bonus everyone for sales, and we have some fun things like we all hit the quarterly membership bonus, everyone gets the bonus. So we try to do some of that too, and just to keep, my husband says, incentives aligned. But also, like, we want to pay our people higher quality. Like, we want them to, like, be in charge and keep the space full and, like,
Yeah.
create community at a local level. So that's kind of the thought we've put into that model. And then hopefully, when we get to the 3 to 5 range,
Yeah.
I can hire a GM or a director of
Yeah. Yeah.
operations. I'm the main full-time operator overseeing and managing the team of 9. So, or is it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, team of 8. So that's my goal, is to kind of start building that, not corporate leadership, but 1
Yeah.
or 2 leaders to help. And balancing, we were just talking about this, not hiring too much because we're,
Yeah.
trying to balance being sustainable and profitable too.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. So, where do most of your leads come from?
Very organic, like word of mouth and Google search. So we think because it's hyperlocal, you're searching co-working in Detroit and hopefully
Yeah.
finding us, or private office in Detroit and finding us. Or you're coming to an event, you've heard about us, you've had a few event experiences, or a friend has told you about an event. So we're very events driven. We try to do 1 to 2 events a week. Our team plans 1 to 3 events a month, and then a lot of times they partner and sponsor just to keep foot traffic coming in and
Yeah.
also build community and add value. So mostly it's through Google search, word of mouth, and events. We want to start building a broker program. I just listened to an episode on your podcast about that.
Probably
So
with
if we're
Evan
trying to
from,
get
yeah.
better at the brokers, but looking for other like strategic things as we get more capacity.
Yeah. So you do the 1 million cups. You do some kind of ongoing Founders First Fridays. You've got some events that just kind of keep folks like coming in, and eventually you'll wear them down and they'll join. How, in terms of revenue, are events an important part of your revenue? And is that,
It's really secondary or even
yeah.
tertiary. Now that we're like in Ann Arbor, we do have a rooftop patio and a
Okay.
50-person classroom space.
Oh,
So
wow.
that
Okay.
has been a little nice bump in revenue for events, but we mostly focus on office and membership, with
Okay.
events being like a secondary
Yeah.
focus. However, I think as we other locations might have more larger event spaces, that might grow and be something we really think about more. In a
Yeah.
perfect world, I'd love to have food and beverage and all that stuff, but I think we're a little too small to add that. We really went bougie with the beverage bar. My husband picked out
Ooh,
sparkling water,
okay. Nice. Yeah.
all that kind of stuff to make that feel really nice.
Yeah.
So, but we don't have like food and beverage. Like, we don't bring you a coffee cart or have the
Yeah.
food on site. So that's something that would be fun to do if we have bigger facilities. I think that would
Yeah.
be great. So adding those couple like smaller investments that could maybe make
Mhm.
an impact, I think we try to do too. So we'll have cold brew coffee, sparkling water, cappuccino machine, but not like the super massive expensive ones, smaller
Yeah.
quantity, but a
Mhm.
good experience still.
100%. Yes, that makes sense. I think we hit your three main lessons learned. I mean, if you had to look back, I feel like I want to harness a little bit more of your experience, because you're 11 years in, 3 locations, a couple more potentially on the way. Well, one other quick question about funding. What, it must be your Royal Oak location. You did use SBA
We
funding
did the
for that
SBA
one.
loan. We did
Yeah.
an SBA loan too for the construction in Ann
Yep.
Arbor.
Okay.
In our potential 4th location, we actually are tapping a state capital program. So you could look to your city or state and see, do they have federal dollars? Do they have state dollars? We have a challenge in this one location where we're getting it very cheap, but it requires a lot of investment. So we have gap financing issue where we need some more dollars to close the gap on the real estate development. And we were able, from that expert that came to the opening that I volunteered for 7 years ago, helped us secure a potential grant and start to so there are people out there that can help you figure these things out. It's tough. That one's very complex. I don't know if I'll do one like that again if it works out, but if it does, we'll have to break it apart on another podcast episode.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
sometimes partner grants, it's hard, but you can look for it. Sometimes it's the landlord, sometimes it's an investor. The asset for us helps make that a little more attractive
Yeah.
for an investor. Yeah. So those are kind of the main, and then customers, like if you can pre-sell,
Yeah.
it's hard, but especially if we try to pre-sell as much as we can before opening a location. That's hard to balance with construction and timeline, but that can be a good revenue source as well.
Cash flow, cash flow, cash flow.
Yeah.
Yes, 100%. I do think, I mean, to your point, post-pandemic, owning in certain markets is becoming, maybe a little more achievable as, landlords are, look okay with letting go of attractive buildings. And I think, access to SBA funding is becoming easier only because there's more education around for the lenders. Because I remember, I think
Yeah, I reached out
maybe,
to you, Jimmy, in the middle of a Royal Oak project.
yeah,
Our lender told us to get SBA financing, and he was like, "Oh, one co-working space did it in Michigan." We found out that was like number 6 ever that got
yeah,
approved. Like, they did
yeah.
not know what the co-working model was. It was very difficult
It can be very hard, but
on the
right,
other
but
side of that. But you helped connect us to someone else who did in the industry who shared,
yeah,
and yeah, I think there's been several more now too. So that does
yeah,
help because SBA financing is designed to help small businesses and fill that gap with riskier
yeah.
capital. But yeah, I think so. Those 3 lessons were like co-working is very hyper local. There's some trends that carry over, but every market could be different. For us, the small private offices are like number 1 in demand. And then community people always find each other, like the 1 Million Cups group, like, and creating that energy of we're really collaborating, I think is important from the beginning for every location.
Yeah, I love it. Well, thank you for posting that to LinkedIn and prompting a chat on the podcast. It was awesome to reconnect. And yeah, thanks for taking the time. You've got so much going on. I appreciate that's how I always feel about you. I'm like, how is Amanda popping in here to share whenever I get to share?
Sometimes I'm just worried. I'm like, what's got, I also
Yeah.
lean in. I mean, I get so
You
much
need
from
community
the
too, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
I want to hear, how someone will figured out their next location or like,
Yeah.
I might go to the operators conference that'll be in LA from Jerome because
Yeah.
I just want to learn. I went to Juicy for my first time last year, which is wild. I'm probably going to go to that every year because I just think you learn so much from other people and what
Yeah.
they're doing, no matter what market they're in.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. And what's next? Yeah. All the things. Well, good. Well, I look forward to seeing you again in person sometime soon. Thank you,
Yeah.
Amanda.
And thank you, Jamie. And thanks everybody for listening.